Mr. Harris here, and welcome to a new video of Chapter 5.2. In this video, we're going to talk about convection. So, in the previous video, already learned about what is conduction. In this video, we'll be focusing on convection. So, convection it occurs mainly in liquids and gases, and as we know, liquids, just like water or gases, for example, in air, they're able to flow. While conduction, on the other hand, we were talking about solids, liquids, and gases. Okay, so there's a difference there. Thermal energy can mainly be transferred in these materials through a process called convection. So let's see what exactly this is. So how does heat transfer actually occur in liquids and gases? So for example, let's first talk about liquids. Say we have a Bunsen burner over here. So what happens is water near the flame, it would become hot and it would rise, and eventually the cold water, the surrounding cold water over here, it would sink and eventually move to replace the hot water. So this cycle where the cold water sinks and the warm water rises up, it keeps on occurring. As you can see, I'm drawing over here, it keeps on occurring till eventually all the water is heated by the flame. Okay, so keep this process in mind, this square that I have been drawing, and let's see the next one. So convection also takes place in air. So let's talk about gases now in a similar way. So the cold air would replace the hot air right over here, and the hot air would rise up over here, eventually where the flame would become hotter and hotter. So what exactly do I mean by this? So having a look at this picture, look at the picture on the right over here. Which hand feels hotter? Is it the one? I think you can already see the answer there, but that's not the point. The point is when you place, for example, you have a candle or even a Bunsen burner, that works well as well. Which hand will feel hotter? Of course, the hand that is right above the flame, right? The one on the side is not as hot, and the reason behind is because in convection, now pay attention, guys, hot liquids and gases, they move upwards. In other words, thermal energy is transferred upwards. And that is why we feel this hand is hotter. It is because thermal energy is transferred upwards. Now, keeping this logic in mind, let's see some examples after right over here. So, in convections, for example, let's talk about heaters first. Heaters, of course, are placed on the ground, and when we turn on the heater, the air near the heater heats up. So, right over here, the air that we have over here, it heats up, right? And the warm air would rise. And eventually, the cold air that is in the surrounding, they would sink down below over here. Eventually, this process occurs, keeps occurring until the whole room is warmed up gradually. And I want you guys to see this. Earlier, as I mentioned, thermal energy is transferred upwards, right? By the movement of the liquids and gases itself. And as you can see over here, the warm air is being moved upwards. And eventually, the whole room is being warmed up. On the other hand, let's also talk about air conditioners. So conditioners, as we know, we install them high on the wall, and the air conditioner gives out cold air. So how exactly does this work? So cold air, it falls and pushes. For example, cold air comes down, it would push up the warm air, the warmer that is on the ground. It would push them up, and remember, thermal energy always goes upwards, right? So the thermal energy, the warm air, would go upwards. The air conditioner will take in this warm air, and of course, because inside our air conditioner, it has this whole system of how it can transfer the warm air and make it cool, and that is how the air conditioner works. So it's also using the process of convection in order to make the room cool. So eventually, this process keeps on going. The cold air comes down, the warm air goes up, and the air conditioner cools it down, and eventually all the air in the room is cooled. Okay, there are some more examples in your textbook. You can have a look, but all these examples have one thing in common, which is thermal energy eventually is transferred upwards by the process of convection. Okay, and another thing to remind you: this is only for liquids and gases. So let's do some checkpoint questions. Okay, question A. Convection can take place in solids, liquids, and gases. Is that true? Now, as I just mentioned, this is false because it does not occur in solids. Let's see question B. Thermal energy is transferred in all directions by convection. Is that true? No, that's false. It is transferred upwards by convection. Okay, make sure you know this. And finally, question C. Air flows when it is heated. Is that true? Yes. As I've shown you in the first slide, both liquids and gases, they are able to flow. Okay, so that wraps up this video on convection. Okay, so we already learned what is conduction. Now we've learned what is convection. In the next video, we'll be talking about radiation. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.